Hey, so just a quick disclaimer before we start the rant. The footage of the game that you're seeing on screen has nothing to do with the content of the video. It's simply just something to look at if you want to look at it. So if you want to tab out or just mute the video and watch the shitty gameplay, you're welcome to do so. And it's been a very long time since I've done a video of this style, and to be honest, I missed it. But this time around, I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. I'm going to write out what I'm going to say. I'm going to practice recording it and make sure it's all perfect and great, instead of just winging it like I had done in the past. And I feel like my written word is much stronger when compared to my fumbling around for the right words when I speak. My plan is to pour myself a gin, put on some ambient choir music, and write. And we'll see what comes of this. It's kind of like a very loose sort of essay, basically, that kind of comes into the point at the very end. And for those of you who are new to this, which I assume is quite a bit of you, I used to do these rant videos about topics that were near and dear to my heart. I used to put up random gaming footage and then talk about whatever it is that I was feeling. And if these videos are, or if this video is well received, then I might revisit this a little bit more, but in a different, more polished format. Compared to the past, anyway. Okay, so let's hop right in. So, over the past 4 months, my life has changed quite a bit. I decided to finish up at the university and graduate with a diploma as opposed to the full bachelor's degree, and to try to enter the workforce. And I've been a lot more focused on my music, as some of you could tell. I was trying different styles, producing my own beats more regularly, and trying to learn how to tap into the flow state of mind whenever I was writing. And I was getting fairly successful at tapping into the flow state. My songs Contradictory and Atlas were written 100% basically in that state, and it felt like the lyrics wrote themselves for those songs. And it was pretty great, because maybe it was just because they were so personal that it all just kind of like flowed out, but either way, I'm appreciative of that. But the biggest change I noticed in myself since January, which is the meat and potatoes of this video, was my mentality towards myself and what it really means to try to be somebody that I respect. Because to be somebody that's admirable, that radiates strength of character and inspires other people to be better people is what I want to try to become. And at first, it felt like I was trying to become Superman when I didn't have the confidence to be Clark Kent in the first place. This is a metaphor I'm going to be going back to quite a bit. But this metaphor is fairly fitting for me as well, because I always thought of the collective as like my alter ego. Collective is whoever I am whenever I write, whenever I need to express angry or depressed feelings. It's basically my outlet for whenever I feel anything adverse at all. And keeping on with that alter ego idea, I pretty much kept Collective as a secret identity for a long time too. Very rarely I would tell people that I rap and make video game music and original songs as well. And when I first started, I told a few friends that I made a couple of rap songs. Like, it was literally only 2 songs that I had written at the time, when I told a handful of my friends. Might have been like five of them. And the reaction was met with pretty much what you might expect. It was borderline condescending with an underlying tone of, dude, don't, you should stop. However, there was one friend that pushed me to do it. And honestly, now that I think about it, if it wasn't for the encouragement of that one friend, that would have been my career right there. That would have been it. 2009 would have been the birth and the death of this whole fucking thing. And over the years, I always find myself afraid of that same reaction, the same condescending line of questioning of, you're a rapper? What do you talk about? How hard your life is? What it's like in the hood? No, it's not like that at all. So I decided to keep it a secret, and at least until I knew somebody really well and was comfortable sharing it with them. So, simply put, I was a closet rapper. Still am, honestly. And I'm going to tie back into that, but I got to get something else out of the way first. So, I feel like the fact that I kept those 2 parts of my life separate was a huge mistake, because in my day-to-day life, I would feel like almost embarrassed or ashamed that this was the hobby that I had. And making music about video games is not necessarily, the chicks aren't lining up for it, just yet. Maybe. We'll see how big nerdcore music gets. But when I would come online as Collective, things were a little bit different, right? Because my day-to-day was like embarrassed, full of, anxiety and all that sort of stuff. When I came online, it was totally different. I was expressing anger. I was talking out. I wasn't taking shit from anybody who was trying to put me down. And eventually, I tried to write some music that would attempt to give some value to the people who are listening to my music. And I began to write about self-reflection, life, the struggles of being, etc. And very early on, I created this formula, basically, that I still stick to nowadays. And it consists of 3 basic parts. Part 1 is venting about my feelings. Part 2 is addressing whatever the problem is that I'm facing. And part 3 is talking myself into a resolution, or making a resolution for myself, usually. So following the structure basically allows myself to bring my story from start to finish, and hopefully it does for the listener as well. And it seemed to be working. Once I started getting comments of like, thanks for the song, I was feeling the same thing, or I'm stressed about this as well, or like, I can relate to this, that's when I really began to hammer in on this, because again, like I said, when I came online, I was Superman, but in real life, I was still a nervous, shaky little Clark Kent. And tying back into what I was talking about earlier, because of the nature of my day-to-day life was so nervous, self-doubting, and anxious, it negatively impacted my opinion on my music. And it's no wonder that I did, not only when I didn't tell people I did it, but if I spent my day telling myself that I'm no good, why would my hobbies escape that wrath, basically? And this is a mentality that carried throughout the 9 years I've been making music, basically up until about 4 months ago, anyway. What really sparked this change in my reflection and my mentality towards life and myself in general was pretty simple. I was getting pretty fucking sick of it. I manifested my own anxieties. I created the monster that lives under my bed, so to speak. And slowly over the years, I shaped this monster and gave it permission to try to sabotage me as much as it possibly can. And most of the time it will win, making it stronger. And it got to a point where it was starting to affect my social life. I would purposely keep myself in my room because I didn't want to go and hang out, because I kept having all of these what ifs ringing in the back of my mind. And it was my 26th birthday when I decided to get this whole fucking train started. So back in October, so 6 months ago really. I felt pretty unhappy pursuing school, and I couldn't shake the feeling that if I kept pursuing this, it just wouldn't be as fulfilling as I'd hoped. So I put a lot of thought into it and decided to finish up this one last semester as best I can, and then try to enter the workforce after that, work on my own self, and then stand on my own 2 feet as a man. So the ball started back in October, this whole train of thought started back in October, but it's only really since January that the self-reflection and attempt for growth has really begun. And one of the things that I started doing back in January was telling that negative voice in my mind to shut the fuck up. Like, quite literally, I would use that exact wording. And after about 4.5 months of doing this consistently, it's finally starting to dial back. This technique came from a couple of different places, from teachings of meditation, and from, it's not very zen to say, hey, shut the fuck up, but the principle of it is to dismiss negative thoughts. And the second place that this came from was from Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. And I'm very slowly making my way through that book, and I haven't finished it yet, but the second rule that he has is to treat yourself like you're someone you're responsible for helping. And this is the notion that I'm currently focused on the most. It's something that I'm still working on. It's a daily struggle, as it will be for forever, potentially, but it's something I'm noticing a difference in already. I began replacing self-doubt and anxiety with self-insurance and fortitude of character, which feels pretty fucking nice, not gonna lie to you. And honestly believe that it's the trio of physical exercise, meditation, and enforcing a positive mindset that's really beginning to shape me into the Superman I've always dreamt of becoming. And to think that this journey is only just getting started. I'm only 4.5 months into this, and I'm already noticing positive changes. So imagine after 4.5 years, it's gonna be pretty nice. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand that there are people in this world who do have like severe cases that are reliant on medication for dealing with their depression and anxiety. But I guess the whole point of me making this video is to talk to the people who are creating their own demons, who have done this to themselves, basically. Because whether it was like a poor mentality that went unchecked for far too long, like it was for myself, I just started shit talking myself and berating myself down, and then it just continued to spiral and get worse and worse, and that happens to a lot of people. But I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach out to these people and share my side of the story of like the people who pummel themselves down into being Clark Kent without the vision of being Superman ever again. And I've experienced these patterns of self-doubt, depression, and anxiety. And it was those three emotions that were the exact reason why I didn't upload any songs for a year and a half during my hiatus. And those are the same emotions of the reasons why I don't ask out certain women, why I didn't reach out to certain people for collabs on songs, why I didn't do a number of things that I wish I had done. But I had to realize one thing first before I can move on from this, which is what I've only just started the process of. I created this monster so I could just as easily kill it. Now I know that this is the fucking raid boss and I'm going at it with level 1 gear, and it's gonna take patience, strategy, and some real fucking endurance, but when the fight is over, the reward is gonna be well worth the time and effort that I put into it, because at the end of this, I'll have carved myself into that Superman that I always knew I could become, and I don't have to worry about living like a Clark Kent in comparison anymore. So the main point of this, my call to action, if you will, don't make the same mistakes I have. Don't let the self-destructive thoughts ruin your life. Don't let it dampen your passion or crush you into a shell of who you are or who you're capable of being. If you created this demon, fucking kill it.